So despite there being no grade one winners in the race, it was a pretty exciting Pennsylvania Derby field, and the race shaped up pretty interesting too. We figured Baeza was going to be the horse to beat. We thought he was going to get the setup with a lot of speed. That's the way it played out, but he was much the best in that race. I thought Magnitude ran a really good race to be second for a horse who had only really done his thing on the lead before. For him to be able to sit off the pace and keep closing like that and, get within a couple of lengths of Baeza, I think that bodes really well for him going forward into his 4-year-old season. But it was a satisfying result for Baeza because he was the third best of what's looking like an all-time crop of 3-year-olds, at least at the top this year. And, shout out to John Sheriffs and the team for kind of nursing him along, getting him to be a little bit better. And he had his coming out party on Saturday. He got a 105 buyer and just, it looks like he's going to be a contender in the Classic. Like he's going to have to step up a little bit, but it's not like he's way far behind those other two horses and at least the older horses as well. So I thought that was a pretty satisfying result, and a horse who had danced a lot of dances, and I think in any other year would have been a multiple grade one winner by now. And that's why it was so stupid that the idea that because there wasn't a grade one winner in the race, it wasn't a good race when the two top 3-year-olds have won all the grade ones pretty much this year. You had Gosger, who was second in the Preakness, second in the Haskell. You had Baeza. You had a bunch of other really nice horses. So it was a great race on paper. It turned into a great race on the track. John, any thoughts?
Well, I think there's two takeaways. One is that like you said, that there's a big three now in the crop between journalism, sovereignty, and Baeza. And it's not just Baeza being there because he was the little brother of two other grade one Triple Crown winner horses. Now he is legitimately a grade one. And Joe, don't forget, going into that race, he was probably the best A other than in the country. I mean, he only won one race going into that race. So it just goes to show you the depth of talent, at least at the top end of this 3-year-old group. So I think that was super important. I think that now he's no longer the little brother of, now he's stamped himself as a legitimate horse himself. And really, I think he moved earlier than anticipated at the 3/4 mark. He was rolling. I mean, they were going 110-2, and that's when he started making his move into the teeth of the speed, and really made a huge run down the lane. Earned a 105 buyer, which again shows that incrementally he's improving, at least on the buyer numbers. Every time he runs, this being his 8th race of his career, and now he is at least should be talked about in the Classic with some of these other horses. I thought it was great that Magnitude came roaring home at the end. I mean, if it was a 1.25 miles instead of a 1.125 miles, maybe the tables would have been turned as far as that goes. But to me, it was, the horses that were in there showed up. I think that that's not always the case in, as we're getting close to October of these horses when they've campaigned so hard the way they have throughout their 3-year-old year. And it's just setting up, again, I'm going to sound like a broken record, but it's setting up to be a really cool Classic in about 5 weeks or so out in California.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's a stacked race. We're really looking forward to it. You got Fierceness, Sierra Leone, Baeza, Sovereignty, Journalism, obviously, Mind Frame, Antiquarian. I'm probably forgetting somebody, but that contention is going to go like 8 or 9 deep in that race. And
don't forget about Altabelli.
Who's Altabelli?
That was the $15,000 claimer that ran for the first half of the race in the PA Derby.
Yeah, that was unfortunate. But yeah, I mean, it's supposed to be the centerpiece of the Breeders' Cup card, and it isn't always. It's a little bit of an afterthought sometimes, but this year I think it will be that main event. So we're really looking forward to that. And the Cotillion Clico got it done for Brendan Walsh and Irad Ortiz. An improving 3-year-old filly, and it's funny to me like how much the division race in the 3-year-old filly division has changed.
Yeah.
Just in like a couple of months. Like going into the Acorn on Belmont weekend, Good Cheer was like 3-5 to be 3-year-old champion at that point. And now I don't think she has any shot at all unless she somehow jumps up and wins the distaff. She has fallen off a cliff in the second half of the year so far. obviously bodes well for nitrogen. This is the Jon Green show, so we have to mention that angle. She's obviously got a tall task against Torpedo Anna coming up in the Spinster. So we'll see, but this is now a wide open division. When it didn't really seem that way through May, there was one filly that was kicking everybody's ass. Now who knows?
And I think Good Cheer is a situation where she was so dominant early on in her career and really never took that next step. I mean, she peaked, at the end of her 2-year-old, beginning of her 3-year-old year, and I think has hit that ceiling where like a 91, which is a really good buyer number for a 3-year-old filly. She's hit that 91 mark now on 3 out of her past 4 races, and just can't get to that next level, or like everybody else is moving up and developing. So it's no disparagement, I think, to Good Cheer's resume, but she's just not as good anymore. I mean, she was a phenomenal 2-year-old. She was a phenomenal early 3-year-old. And like you said, she was, 1-5 in the Acorn. And ran, very poorly, ran 5th at a 6 in there. But let's focus on the winner, who, again, this is only her 5th race of her career. A quality road filly that should, have blue sky ahead of her as far as improvement. She improved to a 9 from an 83 buyer, winning the Indiana Oaks, to a 92 buyer, got the grade 1. And Dry Powder, I thought, also put in a huge run on the outside, a gun runner out of a Broken Vow mare that ran second. And then they were just kind of picking up the pieces after that. I was a little disappointed in Scottish Lassie. I thought for sure that from the rail that she was going to be able to break and go, and maybe she bounced off of a 99 buyer, which is an eye-opening buyer number and an eye-opening race in the CCA Oaks that she won at Saratoga. And Joe, just like we said last week, to this date, Lucara still hasn't passed a horse.
Yeah. No, for sure. I mean, she's a one-way speed, and she caught the right track in the Acorn and took advantage of it, but just hasn't been able to make that same impact since. I don't agree with the idea that Scotch Lassie bounced, because didn't they skip the Alabama specifically to avoid her regressing off of the CCA Oaks? I think maybe she's just one of those horses that can pop up and run a big race every once in a while, but just can't string them together consistently. So it's a really interesting division race now, coming down to the last 6 weeks or so leading up to the Breeders' Cup. And obviously we're on Team Rail Talk rooting for nitrogen, but it makes it more. What? It's that face.
No, I banged.
You don't want me to mention her name too much?
I banged the computer while I was trying to get.
Okay.
I was trying to get my nitrogen hat. No. I wasn't like stop saying that. Stop saying that. No. I'm all team nitrogen. Yeah. No. She's. Yeah. We're. I mean, the whole point of the exercise is trying to get her to be Eclipse champion, and certainly running in the Spinster is going to be interesting. Joe, as of today, there was only 3 horses that had committed to running in the Spinster. It was us and 2 other older mares, Torpedo Anna and Darth Vader, is hinting that they're not sure yet. They're either going to run in the Spinster or skip it altogether and just go right out to California.
Do or do not. There is no try.
I just had that conversation with Patty this morning. That's ironic because I was the whole Mr. Miyagi. I did it with a bad accent, but you did it actually perfectly.
But that's Yoda. That's why I said it.
Oh, that's Yoda. Okay. Well, Mr. Miyagi also said, I won't do the voice, but basically, he was like, Daniel-san, are you ready? And he said, I think so. And he goes, no. You ready? No ready. Think so.
I was just thinking, we're on the same track right there. I was just thinking because of the Darth Vader thing, Yoda. Blah,
you
blah,
were right,
anyway.
And because Baby Yoda is running again this weekend. I mean, no, you, as usual, you are the rudder of this ship.
Of this often rudderless ship.
Rudderless, sailless, meandering boat to nowhere.
But just going back to the PA Derby card for a second. So they handled $17.8 million. That's the second highest total ever. 18.8 in 2022 was the record. And we did it, John. They handled more than the purse money they gave out. That's what we were looking for. And that's what we got. And, in all seriousness, it's, Parks is not the most glamorous track in the world, but it is home for a lot of blue collar horses throughout the year. So it is nice to see them, get their moment, get their day on center stage. And, they put on a good show. Barnes was like,
absolutely. Yeah.
Barnes got beat at like 1-5 in the Gallant Bob, big upset there. There was a lot of there was a good mix of results. You had like the chalk and Baeza kind of breaking out and getting his time in the sun. And then you had, the up and comer like Clico and the Cotillion. You had some upsets mixed in too. So it was a really nice card, beautiful day. And shout out to the team at Parks for pulling it off. It's, it serves a real purpose, I think. And I say this as someone who doesn't like that it's cannibalized the Travers, but you kind of do need that springboard because the Woodward is no more pretty much. The Santa Anita race is obviously all the way on the West Coast. You got the Lucas Classic this weekend, but it's not like a huge marquee race. So it does serve a real purpose now in that calendar for the 3-year-olds as kind of a springboard to the Breeders' Cup. And the race just keeps getting better in quality.
Well, and I love, again, you and I are both regional track guys, and I love it when a regional track gets a day like this and they get the weather and they get the horses and they get the turnout that they so richly deserve. The other 300 and whatever days that they race during the year, they're usually not great cards. But for this day, they really showed off well. They gave away a lot of money. They got a lot of people that came to the races, and they exposed their facility to the racing industry. And there were some wonderful comments, believe it or not, on Twitter about Parks Day. And for these regional tracks, they need to have a signature day or a signature moment like this, where they give away a shit ton amount of money and they show off, and they are of importance on the racing calendar. And I think you hit the nail on the head. They've stolen the thunder from New York by through the amount of money and the placement of these races. To be 5 weeks before the Breeders' Cup is absolutely perfect, because anyone who wants to race in Kentucky is going to wait to run opening weekend at Keeneland, so it's 4 weeks away, and it's just the perfect amount of time for today's modern athlete, and the perfect placement on the calendar for when they can have these races. So I give them a lot of credit for kind of realizing that niche and exploiting it.
Yeah, well, and there's no real Breeders' Cup Classic prep at Keeneland even. So if you got a 3-year-old, like where else are you going to run right now to get to the Classic? And also, it broke over the weekend that the Pennsylvania Racing Commission is doing searches and seizures on the backstretch as well. Yeah. So I mean, that's something that, and we've seen that before. Like you got to give a tip of the hat to them for being proactive now. Certainly there are guys there that I think are taking an edge that they haven't busted yet. Right. But, at least I've seen some kind of effort in the past couple of years by the powers that be in Pennsylvania to try to clean things up. So I think that's another kind of good karma that they're putting out into the universe. They deserve to have a really nice card like this on a beautiful day, like you mentioned.